soft spot that he had for me in his heart, because he was so friendly with my mother.
Yeah.
He just wanted to make me feel better. So he prescribes me Ativan and Klonopin and tells me, listen, when you feel like this, take one of these and you should be all right. So that was my solution. You know, I would drink, I would do coke all night. And then when I woke up in the morning and I couldn't get out of bed, I would take one of these pills and I'd be fine. And I could go about my day until I could get home at night and do what I really wanted to. And again, that could only last so long.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 years later, you know, I lose the job and I wind up in a psych unit in Long Island because I was just out of control. You know, and I went to my mother, I went to my aunt, and I said I needed help, but I didn't really want help. I just wanted to get away because life was getting too hard.
Mm-hmm.
So they take me to this place and I get interviewed in an emergency room. I think I'm going to rehab. I think I'm going to what I used to see on TV when I was a kid, like the 90210 rehab. It wasn't that, you know?
90210 rehab. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I get to this place and, you know, the doctor asked me some questions. I was under the influence when I went there. So I don't really remember what I said, but whatever I said, they basically take me up in an elevator and the doors open and the door buzzes and I go in and the door shuts and locks behind me. And I'm like, where am I right now? And I turn around and my mom, she's crying. My aunt is crying. The doctor is in tears. And they looked at me and they said, this is the psychiatric unit of the hospital, Tommy. You're going to be here for at least the next 10 days. Mm. And I was like, come on, like psych. I don't belong in psych, you know? And they left and I called all my friends and I got to get me out of here. I don't belong here. Apparently they all thought I belonged there. So nobody was coming to save me, you know? And, so I go to my room and I'm crying, you know, I'm 26 years old at the time and I'm crying like a little baby. And the nurse knocks on my door and she says, you know, Tommy, there's an AA meeting down the hallway if you want to go. And I said, I appreciate that, ma'am, but I'm not here for alcohol. I'm here for cocaine. So I really don't think I need to go down there. And she looked at me and she said, it's not like you have anything better to do right now. And you look like you need somebody to talk to. So why don't you go down there and hear what they have to say? It made sense to me. So I said, okay. And I went down the hall and I listened to a man speak. And he was from Staten Island, where I live now. And he talked about driving over the Verrazano Bridge to buy crack in East New York, Brooklyn. And he would spend all his money. So he would have to collect cans to pay the toll to get back over the bridge. As soon as he said that, I stopped listening because in my mind, I said, that will never be me. This guy's talking about smoking crack and collecting cans. That will never be my life because all I did was a little too much cocaine. I'm 26 years old. I have a college degree, the whole nine, like I just very arrogant.
Yeah.
And I said this to this man after the meeting, this man who came up to do service and help people. And I said this to him and he was very patient with me. He just looked at me and he said, kid, if you keep thinking the way you're thinking, you're going to keep doing the things you're doing. He said, and sooner or later, your story is going to be mine, whether you like it or not. And I thanked him. I shook his hand and I went back to my room and I said everything they needed to hear for the next 10 days. Yeah. And I got out of that place on a Monday morning at 10 o'clock. And by 8 o'clock that night, I was drinking again. Never even thought about stopping. Yeah. Never thought about it. No. 5 days later, I'm at a house in Hunter Mountain in the bathroom, sniffing cocaine. 5 days after I get out of a psych ward, I'm doing exactly what I was doing before I went in. Mm. A month later, I used to take Percocet all the time, and I loved them. I loved the way they made me feel. I remember the first one I took. But it was never a daily thing. It was always when I could get them. Most of them that I got were from my aunt because my aunt was very sick and she was prescribed Percocet and OxyContin, which I didn't know what OxyContin was. I found out about them when I was in the psych place. So one night, a month after I get out, I'm going to get Percocet from my aunt's drawer, and I see the OxyContin, and I take a few. And one night, I'm out drinking all day, and I have this pill in my pocket, and I take it out, and it was an 80 milligram. And I said, I can't take 80 milligrams. That's too much. So I'm gonna.
That's crossing another line.
Yeah, it's another line. So I'm gonna break it in half. I'm gonna take 40, not realizing that the timing lease was broken, and everything was gonna hit me at once. So now I'm in a bar. I'm talking to my friend after I take it, and all of a sudden it hit me. And to that point in my life, that was the best thing I ever felt. And I knew right from that moment that that was going to be what I wanted to do the rest of my life.
Wow.
And I got very sick that night, throwing up everywhere, itching, like scratching my back with a knife because it was bad. But still, I still loved the feeling. And I laid off of it for about a month. And then a month later, I said, this time I'm not going to drink. Maybe that was it. And I'm going to take the full 80 because it was the drinking and it was that I broke it.
Yeah, broke it in half. Yeah.
So I take the full 80 and I was sitting in my bathroom and I remember me saying to myself, this is so great. I never have to drink again. I'll just take these. And then about 2 hours later, I said, well, if I drink, imagine how much better it'll be. Long story short, that one pill turned into about an 800 milligram a day habit. And it leads me to the beginning of my book when I have the confrontation with my friend for stealing his money. And he basically tells me, you know, you've been stealing from everybody because you're a junkie and that's what junkies do. So I get thrown out of his house. I get thrown out of another friend's house. I get thrown out of all the stores on my neighborhood. You know, my mother's locking the doors, my cousin, my aunt has to sleep with her pills on her person because if she didn't, I would just take them. And I go up to my cousin's house in Pennsylvania to dry out. And the first thing I did when I got there was steal his Percocet. And when he confronts me about it, I just lie to him. And we're the only two people in a 50-mile radius. And I'm just like, oh, it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
And I'm drinking anything I could find in the house. And eventually he just had enough. He took everything away from me. He flips me 2 joints, locks me in a bedroom, and said, that's all you get. He said, you're out of control. That's all you get, so deal with it. And he went downstairs. And the feeling I had that night, it was crippling. You know, the depression, the fear, the withdrawal I was going through. And I turned around and there was a shotgun on the wall. You know, he had won it in a raffle years earlier. And I remember standing on the bed and taking the shotgun down and just leaning on the end of the bed with it under my chin, praying for the strength to pull the trigger because I just wanted to end my life. I couldn't live how I was living anymore. I was killing everybody around me and I couldn't stop. I didn't know how to stop. And I don't know if that gun was loaded. Till this day, I don't know if that gun was loaded, but my intention that was there. I wanted to kill myself because I thought everybody would be better off without me. Obviously, I don't do it. And I get through that night. I get through the next day or two. I go home to Brooklyn. And after all of this, I go on for another 2 years. And 2 years later, I'm collecting cans in the street for crack money. I never stopped, and my story became that guy's. And, you know, I'm smoking crack. I'm sniffing 2 bundles of heroin every day. And I broke. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take the hustle. I couldn't take the lying. I couldn't take hurting everybody. And I asked for help. And I was sincere about it. Nobody believed me because why would they? But I knew in my heart, I knew I was sincere. So the next day I enrolled in an outpatient program. I went to my first meeting and I raised my hand and I introduced myself and I asked for help and I was helped. And I met men and women, but the men, more importantly, that guided me through life. And they showed me how to live. They showed me how to live a day at a time without a drug, without a drink. They showed me how to be a man. I never learned how to be a man the right way. And that's what these men showed me. And little by little, I started to get my life back. and I got the job that I'm still on today. And I got a little money in my pocket, and I met a girl, and I moved out of my mom's house. I'm loving life, and all the things I'm doing to get all this, I start to kind of fall back. And the girl became more important, and the job became more important. And I remember I used to go to my home group all the time, and we had a kitchen in the back. And there was about 10 of us that used to go there before the meeting. And we used to eat dinner, and we used to set up the room. And those are the people I wanted to be around. But that was all I wanted to do. I wanted to joke around. I wanted to laugh and talk about work and whatever. But once the meeting started, I went into the kitchen and I judged everybody. And I didn't want to hear what anybody had to say. And all those things that I used to get so much out of at the beginning and be so open-minded to, I shut my mind off and I didn't want to hear it. And I said, I'm not going to.
How long were you sober at this point?
I was sober. I was sober about 3 years when that started.
When that started.
I had just celebrated 3 years when the
Did you just think, oh, I could just do this on my own. This is boring. What do you think was going on at the time?
Yeah, listen, I was with the girl, and up until that point, everything was good. But then, life happens, and with life comes life situations.
Yeah.
And I still never learned how to deal with any of this stuff. So when the relationship kind of started going south, and, money problems here and there, I didn't know how to deal with it.
So you reverted, you started to revert to the living, like survival mode.
Mm-hmm. Instead of going to the meetings and talking to people and talking to my sponsor about what was going on, I just didn't say anything to anybody. And I just withdrew into myself. And there's only so long you could do that.
Yeah.
And in August of 2008, I twisted my back on the job. And I went to the doctor and he prescribed me Vicodin. And I remember I took the script and I left that place and I drove to a Rite Aid. And then something went off in my head. I still had it in my head. Call somebody.
Buddy.
So I picked up the phone and I called somebody. I called my friend Chris and I told him, and he said, listen, throw that script in the garbage, come to my house, we'll have dinner, we'll talk about it, you're going to be fine. I hung the phone up and like autopilot, I went into the pharmacy, I filled the script, I went to his house, I didn't tell him about it. And 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in my house and I took one Vicodin thinking, I used to take 800 milligrams of Oxycontin a day, heroin, crack. What's one Vicodin going to do to me? My back hurts. My back didn't hurt that bad.
Yeah.
What's one Vicodin going to do to me? I took that Vicodin and you know what Manhattan Special is, right? The soda?
Yes.
Okay. So I took that one Vicodin with one Manhattan Special. The obsession started as soon as it hit me, but I said, I can't take more than one. So I'm looking at my watch and I'm waiting for the 6 hours to come. And as soon as that 6 hours hit, I take one Vicodin. But I went out and I bought 5 Manhattan Specials because I wanted to chug all of them. So the caffeine would make it hit me quicker and it would give me that rush. So from the first pill I took, that obsession was there. And, I would take a few and then flush them. I had 4 refills on it. So I would take a few, I would flush them, then I would refill it, take a few more. Then I wound up meeting this guy in my neighborhood that had them. And, I would get 20 and I would take 10 and then throw the 10 away. And it was just like, it was insane. And then I actually put them down for about 6 months. And then in June
were you going to AA meetings during this or no?
Yeah,
rarely. Okay.
Very rarely. I would go. Okay. I would go to my home group more just to see my friends.
Okay.
And but I never told anybody about it. I celebrated my 4th anniversary in March of 2009, knowing full well that I wasn't sober. And I always keep my coins. I get a hole in them and I put them on a keychain. I did that my first 3 years, and I've done that this current 5 years. that 4-year coin, I couldn't put on my keychain. I couldn't do it. I got that 4-year coin. I put it in a drawer in my house because I knew it wasn't real. 2 months after that, no, 3 months after that, I refilled the prescription, and like reflex, I think I took 4 or 5 of them, and I drove to Atlantic City with my girlfriend at the time. And that started it. About a month later, I'm up to like 30, 40 pills a day. I go back to the rooms in 2010, but I don't do it the right way. I go on a Suboxone program, and I was trying to do Suboxone the right way. I was taking it. I was going to meetings. I was going through the step work again, but I was never right. I never really got honest with anybody about, even after I told everybody I relapsed, I didn't tell them how far back it went. I would like lie to them and tell them, oh, it only started here. Like at that point, why am I lying? That 1 year I was back, I was coming off the Suboxone, where I was listening to the doctor, and I met my wife, who's my wife now. I met her, and a couple of my friends got married. I talk about them in the book, Sean and Chris, and it was good. It was a good year in my life. But because I really never dealt with what happened when I hurt my foot in 2011, it was very easy to go back and start taking pills again.
Yeah.
And that started it. And I had a couple of surgeries in 11, and then I had elbow surgery in 2012. And that's when I started taking the Roxy's, the 30 milligram Percocet. Going into withdrawal from that, I went to the doctor, again, a friend of my mother's, who had a soft spot in her heart for me. And I played up the whole anxiety thing. And she gave me Valium, and then referred me to a psychiatrist who gave me Klonopin. And then it was 1 milligram once a day. And after 3 visits, I talked him up to the max dose, 2 milligrams 3 times a day. And then I'm back on Suboxone, and I'm buying the Oxy in the street. And now I'm going through all of mine in a week or 2. So now I'm splitting prescriptions with guys at work, and I'm buying prescriptions from the kid upstairs and the lady down the block. And then I have 3 different doctors for all these different things. Things get out of control. So I moved to Staten Island in 2015, and I didn't move to get away from it. I moved because it was just a good opportunity. But in my head, I was like, all right, at least if I get away from these guys, I'll be all right. But then I moved to Staten Island. I find one doctor out here who gives me everything with no questions asked, and, my family blames the doctors a lot. He didn't come to my house looking for me. I sought him out, and I sought many doctors out before him. And when they questioned me, or they made it a little too hard, I just stopped going to see them. So yeah, while the doctor does have, an obligation, he didn't come looking for me. I went to him. So that's on me. So I find this guy, and now things are totally out of control. And I used to look at my medicine cabinet all the time. And by this point, the amount of benzos I was taking, I couldn't stop because I was afraid I would die. I shook. I felt like I was going to have a seizure at times. So that I couldn't stop. The opiates, I didn't want to stop. And the mixture was just crazy, and it got to the point where I wasn't getting high anymore. I needed this stuff just to function and just to get out of bed in the morning. One day in January of 2016, I broke again. My ends aren't this crazy things. I don't get arrested. I don't lose the house. I don't lose the wife. I don't crash a car. I just go and go and go until I'm physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually just done and bankrupt and empty. And that's what happened. I went into my car, and it was a blizzard. I didn't show up for work for the first time in 10 years. And I shoveled Diana out of her spot, and I went in my car and I called up my dealer, and I ordered 90 Xanax. And even he was like, he goes, bro, I just gave you 200 like 4 days ago. And I said, no, I need 90 more. So he said, all right, they'll be here when you get here. And I don't know what happened between that phone call and what happened next. But the next thing I knew, I was sitting on my couch, and I was on the phone with my friend John. We have a special bond, me and him, because when I was sober, when I first got on the job, he was having trouble with painkillers. And I spent many a night talking him through withdrawal. And he was the first person that I thought to call when I needed help, because I knew he knew the process of going away on my job. So I called him and I told him what was going on. And he called the counselor, and then I called the counselor. And then a day later, I was in their office. A day after that, I was in treatment, and I've been sober since. But that treatment was hell. And, I talk about it all the time because I can't forget it. I went in that place 178 pounds. And 2 weeks later, I was 143 pounds. I lost 35 pounds in 2 weeks because I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I shook so violently that I couldn't write and I couldn't speak. When I would try to talk, the words, I knew what I wanted to say, but it's like the words would get stuck. It's almost like I thought I broke my brain. I used to tell that to the guy that worked there. I said, I think my brain is broken. About 2 weeks in, 2.5 weeks in, I get a call down to the office, and my mother and Diana are on the phone, and they inform me that my uncle passed away. And the place tells me that if you want to pass, we'll let you go home for the funeral, and then you can come back. And I hang the phone up, and my counselor wasn't there because it was at nighttime. But there was a one counselor that had always worked the night shift, who I happened to really like. And I remember walking to his office, and I sat down, I closed the door, and I looked at him. I think his name was Bill. I said, Bill, I can't go. And I started crying. And he said, what's wrong? I said, I can't go to my uncle's funeral. I said, I can't leave. I said, because if I leave, I don't want to get high, but I don't want to feel like this. And the only thing that's saving me right now is being in this place with all you people and not being able to get it. If I leave here and I go to that funeral, I'm going to want to feel better. Not want to get high, but I want to feel better. But that one pill, I don't know where that's going to go. I might come back a day later. I might never come back.
Right.
So I can't
go. Wow.
And one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make, because I loved my uncle dearly. But his son died in 2014 as a direct result of drug use. We had an aneurysm. He died in the shower. My uncle found him the next day in the tub. He was 33 years old. And they found PCP in the system. And me and my cousin got high together a lot in our lifetime. So he had a lot of issues, and it eventually killed him. So I know that my uncle would have wanted me to stay in that place.
I think he was there with you when you walked into Bill's office.
I think he was. And, it's a good thing because, like I said, 2 weeks later, I started to feel better, and I started to be able to participate more, and I started to get out of it what I went there for. I knew what I had to do when I got out because I had done it before. And I know rehab is not a cure, but I needed that time away. I needed that time just to physically heal because physically I was a disaster.
Yeah.
And then just to hear things, because as much as I thought I knew everything, I didn't. I didn't. And I needed to be told certain things. And I learned a lot about myself. I was there 35 days. My counselor got me an extra week. When I left that place, I met a guy up there that I'm still friends with today. And he told me to call him when I got out. And I called him when I got out, and I went to my first meeting with him. And that meeting is still my home group. And I met my sponsor that night, and he's still my sponsor to this day. Those people are still my friends. And my life has been, pretty unbelievable since. My mom is good. My mom is good. My mom's good. She's getting older. Her health isn't the greatest, but she's good. She's my she's aside from my wife, she's my biggest cheerleader. She had mixed emotions about this book because it's hard for her, even though she lived it. It's hard for her to talk about it. It's hard for her to really admit that I went through all this stuff, but my mom, it's funny. Her and my cousin, I talk about my cousin a lot in the book. When I first started writing this, I wrote like the first 10 chapters. And I remember it was Christmas, like 2000, I want to say 18. And I remember bringing it to them and say, oh, check this out, read it, tell me what you think. My cousin got through about a chapter and a half and couldn't read it anymore. My mother read it and just looked at me and said, oh my God. Yeah. And then, I wrote the book and it came out and my mother bought the book, but she said, I don't know if I can read it. And then she heard all these people reading and all the good feedback. So she started reading it and, she says she has to close it because she cries, every once in a while because
I'm getting a little emotional right now because yeah. It's hard. It's so hard. My son worked with me and I didn't see it, and to hear his story, um, and to hear your story, and I so identify with yours, obviously because of the addiction, but as a mom, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because we're standing right there, but we don't know what's going on up here. And when he would say things out loud, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing, no, everybody saw, my friends, my family, everybody saw what was going on the outside, but nobody knew what was going on inside. And that's what everybody sees now. And a lot of the feedback I've been getting from the people I do know is that, like, oh my God, we saw it happening, but we didn't know what you were really
We didn't know. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. This was really beautiful.
So
really great. I guys got to get this. I'm gonna put this link in the description so people could buy it. It is awesome. It made me laugh. It made me cry. It was so well done, and I felt every single ounce of it. Every single ounce of your being went into this, and I wish you continued sobriety and lots of love and luck.
And I really appreciate this, Lori, and it was really great. It was great.
I love it. I love it.
I really enjoyed this.
Say hi to your mom for me. I love her.
I will.
And Diana as well. Best of luck to you guys, and continue
Thank you so much,
sobriety.
Lori.